Welcome back to Humbled Highs, episode 14. And this one's going to get kind of deep, y'all, and I'm going to have to be real transparent. And some of the things I'm going to say in this episode, you're going to disagree with. But I'm just telling you my story and the truth that I live on. I'm guilty of murder. I bet you didn't know that about me. Have I ever served time for it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, the Bible says, y'all all familiar with the Ten Commandments, okay? One of them, Exodus 20:13, you shall not murder. These are things that God hates, murder. And we all have our idea. You know, I watch true crime all the time. You know, I love the ID channel. And it's all about murderers. And we all want to know, like, why? That's the big question. You know, we want to see the story unfold. But we want to know why. Why did that person, what was driven to murder somebody? You know, jealousy, hate, passion, somebody got cheated on, or just a straight robbery that led to murder, rape that led to murder. And we always want to know what's inside that criminal's mind that made them want to murder somebody. Can we all agree that taking a human life is murder? Can we all agree on that? Yes, we can all agree on that. But there's these subtleties that give excuse for murder. I hope you know what I'm getting at. So I'm going to give you an anecdotal case. These have happened. But you make up your mind first and foremost. I tell this story, and then I'm going to pause and I want you to think about it. Was that murder? Okay, so Joe goes out to the bar, gets loaded drunk, and decides he's not going to get a cab home, but he's okay enough to drive. He gets in his car and drives down the road. And all of a sudden, he's losing focus. He's checking to see what that girl, if she's texted him or not, and he's texting her back and forth. He crosses over into the oncoming lane and bam, smacks right head on into a pregnant woman. This woman, 3 months pregnant, right? She's barely even showing at all. But she dies. And that pregnancy that she had, that baby in her stomach, dies as well. Now, Joe, he survived. The police come. They arrest him. Vehicular homicide. Joe goes to trial. And they book him for 2 murders. He killed that woman and he killed that baby in that woman's stomach. Did Joe commit 2 murders or did Joe commit 1 murder? That's what I want to reflect on. Okay, so I've already told you in my other podcasts that I was a promiscuous dude. You know, I slept with a lot of people. And throughout that, there's consequences. Not only can you get disease, not only can you lose the bond between a person, not only can you view people as objects, but things like, oops, I got pregnant, happen, okay? Now, that just don't happen, okay? Let's just admit that. You get somebody pregnant, it's like saying, oops, the gun went off. Oh, was your finger on the trigger? Yeah. Well, that's what happens, dummy. At age 22, I got a girl pregnant. I was living with her and her mama. And, you know, we obviously didn't plan for that to happen. But we obviously planned to have sex. And, you know, that's a consequence. The safe sex and all that stuff like that, you know, thought we took measures, but she got pregnant. Now here I am, I'm a bum at this point in time. At 22, I had nothing to my name. I'm living with a girl and her mom. I was scared out of my mind. I already had a child. You know, he was 6 years old. I already had my son. And I had no intentions of having any other children. You know, and honestly, I never even intended on having the first child. I was 17 years old. You know, I was just shooting my gun in the backyard. I didn't know somebody was going to get shot, but it happened. And so at 22, me and this girl, she loved me. And I convinced her. I said, we got to get an abortion. And she really wasn't up for it, but I took her to Planned Parenthood in Nashville. I saved up that money, and I paid that $433. I sat out in the car, and I waited for her. And when I saw her, when she came out of that door, it looked like the life was stripped out of her. She was pale as a ghost. And she sat in the car, and she was in a lot of pain. And she was just bawling, crying, and I selfishly was relieved, because here this problem was now not going to be a problem. How am I going to take care of this child? I obviously couldn't financially even basically pay for my own life. How am I going to do that for a child? I was relieved, and I had no words to comfort her. I was selfishly feeling good, because I was like, oh, this problem's gone. It didn't take much longer before that relationship fell apart. Ended up in another relationship, and we were together about a year. And then turns out we were going to break up. And her friend called me. I think the day we broke up, her friend called me and said, hey, she's pregnant. And I said, what? Yeah, we're headed down to the abortion clinic. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I said, well, I don't have no money. She said, no, her parents are paying for it. I said, well, okay. And inside I'm like, whew, now I done, missed two pregnancies now. I'm still can live selfish. And I didn't really have any feelings about it, any negative feelings about it. But I decided to fix the problem. The problem was I was getting girls pregnant. So you know what I did selfishly? At age 25, I got a vasectomy. I thought, okay, here's permanent birth control. Now I can shoot my gun and nobody will get shot. Nobody's going to get pregnant, because I can't get them pregnant. I didn't get vasectomy for the right reasons. I got them to be selfish, because I didn't like protected sex, and I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Now, I mean, y'all must have been like, what is this guy doing? Getting a vasectomy at 25. You know how many doctors were like, oh, this is a bad idea. You're too young. You should probably save some sperm. And I'm like, no, I don't have no intentions of having any kids. So here I am, age 25. I've got an 8-year-old son, and I've got 2 abortions on my back. Now, did I care at the time? No. Now I had a free license to carry and shoot wherever I wanted to. Now, fast forward about 11 years after that, that's when I surrendered my life to Christ. And that's when I started to realize the implications of what I had done. See, I would have 3 children right now. 3 children to my name, if I had not done those abortions. And the gravity of what I did out of selfishness and out of fear was use abortion as birth control. And I realized that the moment those girls became pregnant, the moment that seed sat in that egg and something happened where God reaches in and he conceives life, that moment, it suddenly dawned on me that wasn't just a lump of flesh to become something else. That was life. And I realized that I had committed 2 murders. I had paid for one like some sort of mafia hit going to Planned Parenthood. It only cost you, that's the cheapest murder you ever get on the streets, I'm telling you. Because I know, I lived on the streets. I know $500 for a murder is pretty cheap. Sometimes you got to pay $10,000 to get somebody killed. But these days you could do it legally, and only $433. The other one, I didn't put up one protest. I didn't say anything to that girl like, well, could you possibly carry the baby to term and we could give it up for adoption? There's plenty of parents that would love it. Or, please don't do this. I can raise the baby. I'll find a way to do it. I've got people I know that would love that baby. I just said, okay, go ahead and get that abortion to the second girl. I saw when I became a Christian, when I surrendered my life, the Holy Spirit showed me that I had to ask for specific forgiveness about that. I really had to deal with the fact that I hadn't dealt with this ever, that I just pushed it away so I could become selfish and treat abortion as if, like I said before, it was birth control, and it's not. A couple years after that, this whole, all these statistics about abortions, I started looking into them, and it's really crazy. And a lot of people don't even know how many babies have been aborted. So I'm sure you all are familiar with the case Roe versus Wade. It was decided in January 22nd in 1973. Now it's recently been overturned, and states are allowed to decide for themselves whether they'll make abortion legal or not. And there's all kind of different, how late in the term is she, or some states will let you do it all the way into the 9th month. But since that date, abortions have been recorded. And you know how many abortions there's been? Over 63 million children have been murdered. 63 million. Feel the weight of that. That's 1/5 of the population of the United States right now. 63 million people that would be walking around, have stories to tell. That the first aborted baby would be 50 years old. And those numbers started to affect me. And I started thinking, well, I've got 2 in that basket. And I said, what am I going to do about it, So I hooked up with a guy that did active, not protesting, but counseling on site. So what I do, I go to the very place that I paid for that murder, and I stand there, and I start praying in the parking lot, because they won't let us in the parking lot. They won't let people interfere with them. So you got to stand around it, and they got big fencing around it. And as people would get out of their car, I'd say, hey, can I just talk to you for a minute? Because I've been exactly where you're at. Can I just talk to you for a minute? And they don't want to hear it. But there are some people that do want to hear it, because they're at a place in their life where they feel like they don't have a choice. But yes, they do have a choice. Because you make the choice to have sex, unprotected sex, or protected sex, and something goes wrong. Choices have consequences, okay? And that means that life was created, and there's a consequence to that, of being responsible for that life now. Does that mean that you have to raise that child? No. There are tens of thousands of parents out there that cannot conceive and that wish to share their love with children. Can you not just abide 9 months and carry that child to term, that child that God created, and then willfully give that child to adoptive parents that will love and nurture and raise that child? Or is it too much of an ask to give up your body for that period of time? If it is, then I say, then don't do the crime if you won't do the time. Don't have the sex if you're not willing to have the child, to carry that child to term. And I'll just say it, that whole my body, my choice situation, that is a lie from the pit of hell. And I'll tell you why. Because once that child is conceived and that baby starts to grow, do you think that it's the DNA of that woman inside? No. two separate bodies, two separate DNAs. So the idea, it defeats itself, right? It is your body, and you can make that choice. But that body inside you doesn't have a voice to say no. Do you think if you asked that child if it could answer you as a little peanut inside you, hey, do you mind if I have, and you don't even want to say it, but let's just say it. Do you mind if I kill you off because it's really inconvenient for me right now? What do you think? What would you say? What would you say if your mom asked you and you could answer back, no, I want to live. I don't have to live with you. I can live with somebody else. Just I want to live. Yeah. I mean, how can we impose our decisions on somebody else's life? Right? That just doesn't make sense. The Bible clearly says in Psalm 139, for you formed my inner parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. See, life is created by God at the moment of conception. Yeah, I'm one of those people that believe at the moment of conception, that's when life is created. Anything after that, when that test strip says positive, or even if it doesn't, and you get that morning after pill, knowing or not knowing, what do you think you're doing? What are you taking the pill for? To prevent pregnancy? Is that what we're just calling it? No, it's to prevent you from being inconvenienced. That's it. So, just a few months ago, a friend of mine called me. This is after the Roe versus Wade decision was overturned. And I live in Tennessee, and it's now illegal in Tennessee. So my friend, he committed these actions outside of marriage. He got a girlfriend pregnant, right? This girl was still married and separated. And this girl did not want to face the consequence that if she had been caught pregnant, it would have proved in court that she was cheating in her marriage. So you know what she told my friend? I'm going to drive to Illinois where it's legal to get an abortion, and I'm going to have this abortion. It tore my friend up. I mean, he's calling me crying about it, and I'm like, man, there's really nothing you can do about it, man. You can pray, and you can ask her. You can ask her to carry the baby to term, and that you'll take care of it and take full responsibility. And he said, it will. She said, "Is this going to ruin her life, and she'll have to pay for everything in the divorce if she's found out to be pregnant." And he had sex outside of marriage with this girl, got her pregnant, and now she's having an abortion. I wonder how he feels, you know. I mean, he is tore up about it. And I'm not here to point the finger and say, hey, you know, your actions have consequences. You didn't commit this murder, but this child wouldn't be here if you wouldn't have done this. You know, if you had waited till this girl was divorced and properly married her and talked about having children, then if she has a pregnancy, then you can celebrate it. But yet now you have to carry this grief in that an action that you produced caused this girl to get pregnant, and then she decided to have an abortion. I mean, that's tough to carry around. And I still carry around the fact that I murdered 2 children, that it was my direct action that caused the pregnancy of 2 girls, and I paid for one of them, and I stood aside and let the other one happen. And the enemy, Satan, he loves to get at me. He loves to get at me and remind me, you think you're good? You think you do all these things for people? Don't forget you're a murderer. Don't forget. I could have 3 children right now, and they'd all be in their 20s. and yet I have one child. And when I get to heaven, I'm going to have some answers to give to these two children who were never born. And I'm going to have to tell them, I never gave you a chance to live your life because I decided to be selfish. You were an inconvenience to me, and I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Therefore, I didn't give you a chance to even live your life. I'm sorry I was so selfish. I'm sorry I never gave you a chance. And I know they're going to say, I wish you would have given me a chance to live. We could have been family. And there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. And I know that my sin is forgiven. But I still know that there is consequences for my actions. And that I carry those murders with me every day of my life. So I'm here to tell you, your consequences have actions. There's many other choices besides murder. There's many other choices, and there are tens of thousands of families out there that would love to have this child that you're carrying or that you will carry because you decide to have sex before marriage and get pregnant. I don't say this to condemn you. I say this to open your eyes. And from my point of view, abortion is murder.